We are going to talk about schools. Wawira Njeru is our guest, one of our guests this morning. She's a social entrepreneur. She's a CEO of Food for Education. So that resonates with you completely.
It does. It
right?
does. Yes.
Where children are going to be able to go to school because, the school fees that's been paid because all you did was buy them shoe polish, which you also gave them anyway because they need it.
And there's still time because kids are still reporting to school.
Yes.
Yeah. Right? Some have not paid school fees.
Yes.
Still not happening. We can still do this.
And by the way, there's second term, there's third term, there's a new year.
Yeah, as long as we're saying kwa shule.
As long as the students going to school, school fees is needed.
Oh, yes.
They
Oh,
keep
yes.
learning.
The other guest who's also here with us in the studio is the Minister of the Nairobi City County Government in charge of health, wellness and nutrition, CCM Suzanne Silantoi. Good morning.
Morning, how are you?
Very good. Welcome both of you to the hot seats of the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
How's it?
On the 18th.
See, until June.
Yeah, exactly.
If I see you in November, it's still Happy New Year.
Yes.
As long as I haven't
It's
seen you
only
this
more
year.
than New
Yeah, for as
Year.
long as I'm not seeing you.
It can be December 31st.
Yeah. Oh, Happy New Year. And
As
another
long as
Happy
I'm
New Year.
seeing you for the first time in the
Yeah.
calendar year, it's a Happy New Year, right? To welcome you to the conversation is CT Muga. He's going to give you the proverb, but before he gives you the proverb, he'll tell you about the Maramoja Taxi. The Maramoja Taxi is the new taxi app. It's available in Nairobi, in Mombasa, in Nakuru, in Kisumu, in Naivasha.
All major cities and towns of the country.
Yes.
Many benefits. Many benefits. Let's start with something that most Kenyans relate to. They have a wallet. But before you get to the wallet, let's talk about how you register. If you Google, you'll come across Maramoja Transport Company. Look for a blue app. Register, simple name, phone number, email address. That's it. Then you're told proceed, and you proceed. But of interest, once you've proceeded, you will find that among the things that you're offered, apart from the rides that you will probably be securing, they have a wallet where you can actually deposit money. Now, any amount you deposit, automatically they load 50% of that again to your wallet. And if you think that's the end of the story, there's a promotion code. If, as you are seeking to hail a taxi, you key in SPICE30 as a promo code, you get another 30% discount.
Nice.
Now, all these stories before you actually even start riding.
Imagine.
By the time you hail the taxi person communicates with you. As they say in Kenya, you are ahead.
Bas. Wewe, kombele. You're in front. Siti. So this week's proverbs, ladies, are from Nigeria. Now you listen to the proverb very keenly because Siti is going to give it to us in pidgin.
Oh, wow.
And then Ndu is going to refine the pidgin. And it's your job to translate it to English and then give us your interpretation of it.
Right.
Start, Siti.
On your marks.
One day.
Once upon a time. One day, breeze go blow and foul nyash go open.
She knows what it is.
Say it, Ndu.
Just the same way. One day, breeze go blow and foul nyash go open.
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 Silantoi, let's start with yours. In English, please.
I think they've got it.
Yes, now, that's what I told you.
They've got it. They've got it.
One day the wind will blow and bird smelling behind will open. Maybe to say that, one day it's like there'll be a storm and then your bad side will be exposed, maybe. I don't know.
Wawira, what do you say?
I agree. That's how I interpreted it. One day, the things we try to hide will be exposed.
Indeed.
Don't stay hidden
as
forever.
we would say, voila, you're both absolutely right. This is the beauty of Proverbs and the interpretation. You can't be wrong with the interpretation, really.
How do you say voila in pidgin?
Naso.
Naso. Bas. Sindio?
But where do you get all your proverbs from?
Africa. Okay,
Once upon a time.
Is that a book you read? Please recommend the book. Kindly.
It's research.
Website or the blog.
Kindly.
It's deep research. Now, as the schools opened last week, the Nairobi City County government announced that more children were going to benefit from the school feeding program called Dishi in a county. 184,000 learners in 106 schools in the new phase, and the one that was launched last year in August. Some 80,000 children have been receiving food every school day in 45 schools, and now we have increased the number of schools. So this whole conversation about school feeding program is why we are here this morning, and talking about over 180,000 children receiving food. So Wawira is started this business some years back of doing kitchens in schools, and you'll start by telling us what that is all about, and then we'll come into the county and the operationalization of this particular program. So let's start with Wawira. What is Food for Education?
Food for Education, we're a social enterprise, a non-profit, and we provide school lunches. So we started 12 years ago, actually, this month. It was a passion project. I'm a nutritionist. I grew up in Njeru, which is sort of not far from here.
Sort of.
And I grew up in Njeru, and I just wanted to do something to benefit the kids because I knew the impact education had on me and on my family. I was an international student in Australia. You know, I knew people who had $20, $30, a bit more income than they needed, and so I asked them for a little bit of their money. It was about $1,680 in Australia, which translated to about 125,000 shillings at the time. That's what we used to build a makeshift kitchen, started feeding 25 children. So that was 12 years ago. I finished my degree, I moved back to Kenya, and we started building central kitchens after that. So in about 2016, we launched our first central kitchen. In 2020 or 2021, one of the years, we launched our second one. It was in Dagoretti South with the Honorable KJ. And around that time, just after COVID, we met the then Senator Johnson Sakaja, and he was, really passionate about school feeding. And so we started talking about the impact, and he saw the impact. He visited the kitchen in Mukarara. At the same time, we were growing as well. So we have now operations in Mombasa, in Kisumu, in Murang'a, in different parts of the country. But really, one of the biggest operations we have right now is in Nairobi County that has just been launched under the Dishi County programs, working with Nairobi County to support them through our school feeding expertise. But they're really the leader of school feeding within Nairobi County through Dishi County.
What is Central Kitchen? Because you've talked about Central Kitchen. You launched your Central Kitchens. What's that?
That's a really good question. So central kitchens are a way to improve economies of scale, to control quality. So it's a huge kitchen. We actually have one very close to here. So we have our smallest kitchen is about 10,000 capacity. We go up to 60,000 capacity kitchens.
10,000 what?
Meals. Per production. And the central kitchen model, we really mirrored it according to best practice around the world. If you go, for example, to Java, your samosa is the same across all Javas because it's produced centrally and then distributed to the branches. Many people actually don't know that. If you go to another restaurant chain, a huge restaurant chain, production is done centrally to control quality, to leverage economies of scale, and to make sure that everyone is getting the same service. So we built these kitchens that are high technology, that are centralized, and then we distribute the food using trucks to different schools. We don't make the schools so far from the kitchen so that the food remains hot. We do temperature checks on dispatch and at arrival because there are global standards to what the temperature should be when food is being served, and then the food is served on site. So it's a way to reduce cost and also to control for quality.
You said Food for Education is a social enterprise. It's a not-for-profit.
Yes.
What does that mean? That you're not making any money out of this?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Why? Because you want to feed children. Because the question that why would anybody enter into an operation of such grandeur and then not have any kind of commercial benefit from it in today's world?
I mean, I would ask the question, why does the UN exist? Why does different agencies that do, churches do charity work? The social enterprise piece is really a way of building a way according to use business ways of running a business. So the same discipline of production, of distribution, but your goal is not profit, it's impact. So for me, when I started, I grew up in a family where my parents were pastors. So I wanted to give back. That was something in my DNA always, to give back. So, I mean, everyone at Food for Education, obviously we pay salaries and everyone gets money, but gets their monthly salaries, but we're not looking at making a profit. We're not trying to get a cut out of the businesses, out of what we're doing.
Please explain how this works. It sounds really good. Okay. So, who funds it? How is it funded? How do you make sure the funding continues? How do you make sure that the people who get the food are the ones who really need it? Yes.
Yeah, so we're funded by philanthropy. Both here, we have a lot of donors. Here in Kenya, individual donors, people who send in their 20 shillings, their 30 shillings, because what we do is we subsidize the meals. So the meals are a cost that is allocated either to parents, and we make sure that cost is fair for the parent, and we take the rest of the cost, and it's funded by philanthropy both here and across the world. And then in terms of how we ensure that it's the most vulnerable kids, we serve public schools, so we ensure that every child in that school has access to the meals.
Okay. Waziri Silantoi, the Dishi County school feeding program is a public funded program, right? Where budget that's approved by the City County Assembly of Nairobi is now being used to run this particular program. There have been very many questions asked. How much, for example, in this particular year, and how is it going, and how do you determine the amount of money that you need? Let's start from there. How much has been allocated in the current financial year for school feeding?
So this financial year we have about 1.7 billion. That is allocated for the school feeding program. That's both for development and also for the subsidy, the food itself. So the infrastructure, the development bit of it is actually the central kitchens. And you've seen we've done about 10 central kitchens so far. Those are in 10 different sub-counties. We are embarking on 7 more next week, which will be complete hopefully by the second term. So that's the budget that is allocated for it. And then in terms of the subsidy, we're paying 25 shillings per meal, per child, per day.
The county government is paying.
The county government is paying 25 shillings.
And the parents pay?
The parents would pay 5 shillings.
5 shillings?
Yeah.
Now, when you say completed, does it mean that the central kitchens are now operational?
Yes. All 10 of them are operational. There are 10 in the 10 different sub-counties. One is right here in Kwanjenga Primary School, which is not too far from you. And then we have 10 of them spread across the county. But it's important to know that there's always been an allocation for school feeding, even at the national level, especially at the national level. There's some allocation for ECDs at county levels, but there's also an allocation at the national level. The difference between what we are doing and what the national government is doing is they would have cash transfers to the schools, majority of them. So, for example, you go to Toi Primary School, you have 5,000 children, the national government will calculate a certain amount of money that will be enough for your maize and beans and maybe your energy, and then the school is responsible for sourcing and cooking and then providing the meal. So like Wawira said, when you centrally cook, it reduces the cost, because you can imagine buying just one bag of maize for this particular place, unlike buying for 10,000 meals in a day. Of course, the economies of scale makes better sense from that perspective.
Okay.
So we've just changed the model.
What exactly do these children then eat? The food.
Now,
They
or
subsidize food.
Yes.
There's a menu, isn't there?
Yes, there
Okay,
is.
what do they eat?
They eat a nutritionally balanced meal.
Thank
So
you.
it makes sure that there's protein, there's carbohydrates, there is vegetables. So we do a lot of rice, a lot of green grams, maybe beans. Sometimes we throw in some meat, and then we'll keep modifying the menu as we move along. Yeah.
Okay,
So-
we'll leave it at that.
So the county is paying 25 shillings.
Yeah.
Parents are paying 5 shillings. Does that mean the meal is 30 shillings?
So the meal itself costs about 45 shillings.
Okay. So where does 15 shillings come from?
So the 15 shillings comes from our partner, Food for Education, through the donors. So our donors through Food for Education will give us 15 shillings for the meal. Then the parent will pay 5 bob, and then we pay 25 shillings.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, looking at schools in Nairobi, because this is now where, obviously, we're talking about Nairobi County, so it's schools within the county that are benefiting from this, or rather children in schools that are benefiting from this. How do you then decide which schools then will have access to these meals? And what has it been like since this was instituted, where children are being fed? Has it been regular, everyday feeding for how many children?
Yeah, so I mean, our target to begin with is all public schools. And what we've done is we're implementing this program in a phased approach. So we started with phase 1, which Eric mentioned was 45 schools last term. That was about over 80,000 kids. This second term, we're doing 106 schools out of the 235, both ECD and public and primary school, public. And then in May, we hope to complete the entire scope. In terms of how we chose which schools to begin with, we definitely chose schools that are more that needed the service a little bit more. So currently we're covering just about all schools in every informal settlement. So if you go to Mathare, if you go to Kwanjenga, if you go to Kibra, if you go to Korogosho, you'll find that we've covered a majority of the schools. And then, of course, it's based on the infrastructure that is available. So the number of meals that I'm able to produce, then I can feed the kids, which I would prioritize in most schools in the informal settlements. And these are public, primary, and ECD schools.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that means you're talking about just primary. Now we don't have primary. What's it called? The one up to grade 6, what's it called?
Primary.
It's called primary.
Now the whole thing is okay. So is it
NJSS.
is
and
it
junior
up to
secondary.
grade 6 or is it up to grade 8 now?
It's up to grade 8.
Yeah.
So any student in the locality of a primary school gets to be
Gets a
fed
meal.
every day. Yes,
And
every
it's
day.
and it's every day
Every day
for lunch.
for lunch.
1 meal a day.
Yes.
Do they have anything to drink
Well,
apart from water?
at the moment, no.
Okay,
Not
do-
that we
Do
provide.
the teachers eat this meal?
Yes.
Okay, now have the officials at the county level shared in this meal at some point or the other randomly?
Yeah. Yes, actually, in fact, before we began the program in August last year, we had meals for all our city council staff at City Hall. So we served meals for everybody, and they ate so that they know what their children are going to be eating. And every so often, we are always in some school sharing lunch one time with the kids. So I think last week we did about 7 schools. This week we've done another 2. So we're always in the schools and we eat the meal that the children eat.
There's no special food for visitors.
Wawira, you said it's a nutritious meal. What is this? Is it githeri? Is it ugali skuma? What is it? Chapati mandondo? What are you giving the children?
You heard what she said.
It's just nutritious.
This and then once in a while they throw in.
It's balanced in terms of, if you look at, so I'm a nutritionist.
Yes.
So when Food for Education is designing the meal, we think about what the children need. So children at that stage of growth require protein. So making sure that it is balanced in terms of having protein. You look at other school feeding programs, even in the country, have a quarter of the meal is protein. less than a quarter of the meal is protein, because actually a fifth of the meal is protein. They're looking at 20% protein. We're looking at 50% protein. So we make sure that the kids are getting a balanced 1-to-1 ratio. And because that also helps with, why they tell you to drink protein shakes is because protein helps with satiety. It makes you full for longer. So the higher you can eat, the higher protein in a meal, the more full you are for longer, the more you're able to stay in class and learn. We have your carbohydrates, which is rice. Right now we're doing rice because we're waiting for the cost of maize to come down. And also we provide vegetables in the meals. I've had some kids say that when we provide carrots, it's the only, sometimes carrots are very expensive. It's the only time they're eating carrots, that vitamin A that's coming in through your carrots. We provide vegetables, onions, we kanga the onions on the side and the tomatoes so that they have flavor.
Yeah.
And then we add it to the beans to make it tasty. So when you visit the school, which, as Silantoi mentioned, we're in 106 schools. If you visit all these schools across Nairobi, you ask the kids, how's the food? The first thing they say, it's sweet, meaning it's very tasty. So that's something that's also very important for us, for the kids to enjoy the food and to feel like it's nourishing them.
Our guests this morning are Suzanne Silantoi, CCM for Health, Wellness and Nutrition, and the CEO for Food for Education, Wawira and Njeru School Feeding Program. It's called Dishi in a County by the Nairobi City County Government. You've said it's in now, 106 plus 45 public schools?
No,
or is it a total?
Of
Total
106.
106
Yes.
public schools.
Yeah.
Why public schools?
Well, we picked public schools because that is our first mandate, because those are the schools that are within the custody of the government, both local government and national government. But also there was a need. There was a very big need that we were meeting. So like I explained earlier about the feeding structure that was there before, even when the government was providing some sort of cash transfers to the schools, the kids would still pay about 60 to 100 shillings on average for something they call hot lunch. If you went to a public school, you probably know what hot lunch is. And in addition to that, they'd have to pay that cost in advance at the beginning of the term. So what we're giving is an alternative that you can pay. First of all, you pay 5 shillings, which is significantly lower.
Yeah.
And then you pay it as and when you can. So if it is a 5 bob that you have today, then you pay it today. If you have for a week, then you pay it for a week. And it's manageable for most parents. I think with the implementation we're doing last term, we saw just about 2% of the children were not able to pay. And we're finding ways to deal with those who are exceptionally in need. So we will cater for that as well. So no child will be turned away or left without food. But really the importance of it is, we can get lost in the numbers and the figures, but at the core of it, who is this child? Where are they from? And if they're hungry, can they actually study? So you can invest so much in education, but if you don't invest in this child, then is it counterproductive? So so we're investing in the kid as well.
Historically, you said, Waziri, that the Ministry of Education was providing money, capitation money for school feeding. Is that money now coming into this program? Or is it still going to the schools?
Yeah.
A school feeding program from the Ministry of Education? So
ideally, we got into an intergovernmental partnership agreement with the Ministry of Education to be able to implement for primary schools, because ACD is under our mandate as a county government. And in that agreement, we were to cost share 50-50. So if I am spending 25 shillings, if the cost is 25 shillings, the national government would spend half of that, and I would spend half of it. So that is the agreement, and we're still in the process of trying to figure out the logistics of that. But I think it's important to note that
this agreement hasn't been firmed yet.
It was signed. We signed it in July last year.
it has been signed, it has not been operationalized.
We are in the process of operationalizing it. And
A meal you've already established costs 45 bob, right? So how much should, in your agreement, 50% of this 45 shillings should come from the national government?
our agreement is we match it a shilling for shilling for the investment that is public funding. So if I am investing 25 shillings, if we're supposed to get 25 shillings of public money, then I invest a shilling, you invest a shilling. So that gives us a total of 25 for the public funding of that component.
Oh, so 12.5 now would
Yes.
come from Nairobi County and 12.5 from the national government.
Yeah, but I do have to say, this is one of the it's actually one of the new partnership agreements of any role that we've started to implement. I think the second one would be the one for the community health promoters, where the government is cost sharing the stipend for the community health promoters.
Yeah.
So I think it just takes a little bit of time for us to actually just get that operationalized fully as we learn, because it's a new one. So
I hear what you're saying, and I don't want really to get lost into this whole conversation about those, but I'm stuck at a point where the county government is coming back into the role that should be performed by the national government. The same way we keep complaining, governors have been complaining of the national government coming to perform roles that are devolved. Why is Nairobi going to feed children in primary school, and that's a purview of the national government?
Under the Ministry of Education?
Yeah, I think what we are doing is just meeting a need. And our governor always says that, the role of feeding children is actually a role of leadership. And so we're not taking away the responsibility of the Ministry of Education. We're just partnering to help them implement. And ideally, the reason for devolution is to provide service where it is needed. So if Nairobi is able to perform it, why not Nairobi do it together with you? If we are not able to perform it, then why not the national government do it? But devolution is not to leave a gap or a space that should not be met because there's rules or some sort of...
You put it very well, but the
operationalization.
But you see, it ends up looking like you're subsidizing the national government. Because when education is budgeted for, these things are budgeted for. It means money has been put aside for it. And it's a certain amount. Okay, now the county government comes in. I would assume the national government should continue with what they are supposed to do, which means the children will now receive more. Because I dare say, from what you've just told us, they're getting what you call a reasonable minimum. It's not extravagant, it's not lavish, it's enough. Now, if that money existed and the county government in their generosity determined that they want to assist, not subsidize, assist, then, hooray, the child who needed will have more. And is that not a good thing? But with the arithmetic you've just given us, I mean, the child doesn't benefit as much as they could, because this money is still budgeted for. There's nowhere in the government books where you'll find that money is reduced because the county government is now doing what the national government budgets for every single year.
That's true. But just to clarify, what the allocation for the national government for feeding, at least for Nairobi, it's actually not sufficient. In the entity that is responsible for feeding in the national government is called NACONEC. That's a National Council for Nomadic Education in Kenya. And for the allocation that they had, at least for the last financial year, it'll only cover 54 primary schools in Nairobi out of the 209 that we have. And in addition to that, they would not feed all the school days. We have 191 school days. So the funding that was available would only feed just about 60 school days. And so the difference is we are actually coming to supplement what is already there. So that's why they would still have to request for more money from the parents just to meet the need, because the funding is actually not enough. So if we cost share it, then I'm just meeting the need that you have not met. So I meet you halfway.
Wawira, you've been able to raise 15 bob, right? Why must you go to the parent? And you started talking about vulnerability and all. Why must you go to the parent for these 5 shillings?
I think, previously we've really made sure that parents have that ownership, because I think it's really about ownership. If you look at our other programs, we also subsidize them where there's no government contribution, but for less number of kids. So the government partnerships helps us, as the minister mentioned, Silantoi, is that it helps you reach more children, right? And so making it at 5 shillings, we wanted to make it at the lowest cost possible for the parent. That's one. but then also accounting for children who can't afford. So in Nairobi, we actually started the process of registering about 25,000 children, which is about 10% of the population, who won't be paying the 5 shillings. So these children are being identified by their teachers, by their communities in each school, to make sure that, if you don't have 5 shillings, you're able to have a meal still. So we're in the process of doing the registration in the 106 schools, and that will be across all the schools. So there's one piece around making sure that the most vulnerable are catered for, but also that community ownership. A parent feels proud when they contribute. Everyone feels proud when they do something for their child. And the fact that we're able to meet them, I've spent a lot of time this week with parents asking them, is this valuable to you? Is this something that you're seeing? We have a customer care center where parents also call in. And a lot of them are finding a lot of value in a meal being provided at 5 shillings. And it's not a bare minimum meal. It's actually a very high quality meal, because it's a meal that enables a child to learn. It's a meal that, if you were to get somewhere else, you wouldn't get it, obviously, at the cost. I ask kids sometimes, if this is compared to the home food that you eat, they'll say it's better. We've done studies of the nutritional composition of the meal at school versus the one at home. Because of especially tightening budgets, the meal at school is more nutritious. So it's not a bare minimum meal. It's a very high quality meal, because we believe our kids deserve the best. Yeah.
In terms of sustenance of this program, I think that's one of the things that we hear. Something great begins. And because, look, urban poverty is a thing. And for children to have a meal at school, the benefits are untold in terms of the burden that is then lifted from the home setting. And here we're talking about policy issues, not political, but policy issues in terms of longevity and sustenance of the program. If we look at other jurisdictions, it's a given that things will happen. You don't even have to question. You know that there's a stipend that children will get when the school term starts. You know that school lunch is provided. It's not a question of, in 2026, will it be there? It's not. It has been entrenched. So I guess that's where I'm going.
Yeah.
How do we know that something is not going to come up tomorrow and then we'll start looking for Silantoi? People ate the money now for school lunch. We don't even know if half the money was used. We don't know.
I think that's a very valid concern. We're doing our best as Nairobi County to actually institutionalize this as the school feeding component of it. So there's an entire subsector that is just responsible for school feeding and just making sure that kids actually eat, and that process is validly in law. To solidify that space. Secondly, we did the paperwork with the Ministry of Education, the partnership agreement. There's renewal clauses. Of course, we can review and see does this actually work after a couple of years, and learn lessons and pick it up and then implement it further as per the lessons that we have picked up. But then third, also we've set up a school feeding fund through the county assembly. Currently, our regulations are in the assembly that will just allow us to first establish a board of people who are external from the county, who will be able to just look into all the funding that we have and just ensure that we're actually accountable for each of the shillings that we are given by public. And then, of course, we will also have, they'll help us just think through, okay, so how best can we implement this program? But the more significant reason for institutionalizing this is also, so there's also a government allocation for it. And it is not at the whims of whoever is in power at the time. It is actually part of the law and part of the structures that exist. So that is what the steps that we're taking in terms of just sustainability to ensure that it is always funded. And I think a lot of people frown upon government allocations for specific things like subsidies.
Yes.
But the world over, school feeding programs are actually extremely well funded by governments without any apologies. And not just for the benefit of the children, but school feeding actually has a ripple effect on the economy. It helps with food systems and supply chains, the farmers, the people in the entire spectrum of that school feeding program are actually quite a number. Currently, we're employing about 1,500 people on the program to feed 184,000 kids. By the time we've we've implemented to scope, we'll have employed about 2,500 people. So not only are people getting jobs, not only are the children getting fed, not only are the farmers producing the food that we are actually supplying to these children. I mean, it's an entire ecosystem. So it has benefits for everybody. And so we will not shy away as a government to allocate this kind of money to school feeding.
If we appear skeptical, it is with good reason. We have witnessed very many well-intentioned programs begin with a lot of pomp and ceremony and a lot of hope. And then somewhere along the line, things don't quite work out as was intended. What you're doing is laudable. It is excellent. It is wonderful. And indeed, you are meeting a need. Now, you talk about sustainability and putting it in law. What else are you doing to ensure that there'll be sufficient funds? Because we have this situation in this country, we have a growing population, it isn't diminishing. So these children from 186,000 will increase.
Yeah.
There'll be more. What are you doing?
We are actually increasing our revenue. If you look at the drive that we're currently having in Nairobi, we've just introduced the Unified Business Permit, which allows you to pay one license to the county, and then it compiles everything, and then sisi tunagawanya pesa yetu huku ndani, so that you don't have to go to every office and pay for the fire license, for the food hygiene license, for the single business permit. You pay it once, and you have one-stop shop. And we've established a customer care center in Nairobi County. I think it's the first one done by any county. So we're increasing our revenues through that. We're making sure that we're not policing, we're just enhancing compliance. We're making it easier for you to comply and actually pay your taxes. And we will use your taxes for good things like school feeding. So we're making sure that we raise our revenues quite a bit. I think this financial year, our target is about 20 billion. So we're looking to see how...
are you doing now? It's 6 months. I mean, is it 6 months into the new year?
Yeah.
How are you doing in that target of 20 billion shillings, bearing in mind that in the last financial year, how much did you raise? 9? 9,
yes. I don't actually have the figures at the moment, but this is our high revenue season between January, February and March, whereby a lot of people are paying their land rates, people are renewing their business licenses. So I can find out for you and just let you know, but we're doing quite well actually.
You know, this isn't your docket, but the question to whoever's docket it is in the county government, I hope they're listening. Yes, 20 billion sounds like a good figure, but against what? How do we know what the potential of Nairobi County is? Do you know what the potential is? Do you know how much revenue you can actually collect?
Yeah, I think there have been estimates that we could do almost 60 billion if we just unlock ways that people can be efficient in how they pay their taxes.
Again, this isn't your docket, but what makes you think 60 billion isn't collected and that you only receive 20?
I mean,
it isn't your docket. I'm really speaking as a citizen who lives in Nairobi.
You're thinking out loud.
I'm just thinking out loud.
I'm not refusing. It could be possible, but in addition to just making sure that our processes are efficient, we're reducing human interaction with money. So there's no service that you pay for in Nairobi that you pay using cash. If you pay something with cash, yo umempatia, yo ni yake. We pay all our services through *647#. And I think we're getting into that drive currently.
*647#.
Yes.
And there's only one *647.
Only one. And you will get all your services there.
There's something about how to ensure sustainability of this, and also that you increase the sources of fund into this. So you've said right now before the county assembly is the regulation that would establish the fund. Does it allow for other sources of money to get into this fund apart from the county budget?
Oh, absolutely. That's the fund that we will use to administer all our donor funding. It's a fund you as Eric can adopt a child. For less than 1,000 shillings, you can pay for a child for an entire year. So we will, yeah.
Actually, 955.
955. Yeah. So we will come to you with that once my regulations are ready. There's lots of good-willing, good-intentioned Kenyans out there who just want to support. And we see that even in schools already. In some schools, you'd find one parent is able to pay more than 5 shillings. And so they'd pay another 5 shillings for the other child. So that is a fund that we will use to do that. But we will do it in utmost transparency. I know a lot of people have very many suspicions with government, but we will have
That's key.
enough eyes on it just to
Yeah.
make sure that your money is accounted for.
The importance of school feeding. Sorry, I'm coming to you, Wawira. You can say what you want. Yeah. So before you lose track of what you wanted to say, then I'll ask you a question.
I think, the question around Kenya and public spending, I think the benefit of lessons across different countries shows us the benefits of school feeding programs. If you look at India, for example, they feed 100 million children, right? And they've done that for years. And that has been significant public spending instituted by the Indian government through their constitution. So they had a constitution change, and they made sure they call it a midday meal program, where 100 million children get meals every single day. They work with non-profits like us. In India, one of the largest non-profits provides meals for 2 million children, and that has had benefits. And they've done it long enough to see even intergenerational benefits, where the children who are fed now are parents, and there are benefits for that meal that they're able to pass on to their kids because of the level of nutrition that they attain in school. So, countries like India, where they're ahead of us in terms of growth in economies, and it's important for us to take best practice. What is economies around the world who are growing? Brazil, BRICS countries. Brazil also implementing countrywide school feeding programs that have had effects, important benefits for their kids who are now adults. So it's important for Kenya, if we're adding BRICS as a K next to the BRIC countries, it's important for us to take best practice investment in human capital, like school feeding programs, and scale and make sure that they're reaching the most vulnerable kids.
Talk about the impact on the child and school attendance. Has it had any?
Huge impact on school attendance. So first of all, you find that kids want to come to school. They want to stay in school. We have increased enrollment, 30%, sometimes doubling of the school population. We've had a school where it was about, I think, when we started, 600 kids. Now it's about 1,200 kids.
Give us a case study, a practical one.
Gatina Primary School has grown in population significantly since we started.
In
Dagoretti North.
Yes, Dagoretti North. We have schools across Nairobi that are experiencing increase in population already. Teachers are saying to us now, it's really a big even opportunity for them to have more classrooms, to have more facilities for the children. And I think the government is looking into that as well from the announcement that the president made at the Dishi County launch in June last year. But, seeing kids increase in school, in school, but also seeing them being able to learn. If you go to a school, and I'd encourage, Nairobians who want to learn more about Dishi County, there's a public school somewhere near you. Go say hi to the head teacher. If the school is already enrolled, if the school is scaling soon, see what the Dishi County program is, because it's happening every single day. So it's not something you have to be told so much. All of us can visit a school and see what is happening in the schools, even taste the food, see the quality of the food.
I mean, I'm sure it would be a logistical nightmare. But we're seeing all these children in all these schools getting their meals at the same time every day?
Yes.
Okay.
How?
That was my next question.
We have a team that is so incredible that they work all night. And by morning, the food is ready. By 7 a.m., 8 a.m., we have this containers that we've designed that are able to keep the food hot. There are route mapping that has been done for each distribution path. So we make sure that the last school is getting food around 12. The food is kept securely. It's not being tampered with. It's sealed. When it's open, temperature check is done. If it's below a certain level, if something has happened, let's say it's a cold day, the food is not served. If the food is at the right level, the food is served to the kids. So our team is incredible at making sure that the food leaves on time. We cook overnight. If you visit a kitchen, you can also ask the women what time they came in. They cook overnight to make sure that at lunchtime, every single child, even at Olympic Primary, which is the biggest school in Nairobi with 5,000 children, each of those children are being served every single day by 12, and by 1:30 they go back to class. So in less than an hour, we're able to serve up to 5,000 children and make sure that they eat.
Where? Okay.
I would just like to address that issue of the school and retention in school. In fact, there are places like in Kayole where the schools have had to build mabati classrooms just to accommodate for the kind of influx in children that they're having. And I know there's a lot of naysayers saying that we should not have allocated this budget to feeding. Maybe we should have constructed the classes, or I mean, all those things can happen concurrently. Why should the children remain hungry while I collect the garbage? Can I do that? Can I do both of them at the same time? But in addition to that, we've gotten into a program with the national government to do 5,000 classrooms in the next 3 years. So we will do 1,500 classrooms for ECD. They will do 3,000 classrooms for primary, just to meet that need in Nairobi.
You do your ECD. Those guys. It's okay. Silantoi, Suzanne Silantoi is the CCM for Health, Wellness and Nutrition in Nairobi City County. Wawira Njeru is the CEO of Food for Education. We'll be talking about the school feeding program in Nairobi, Dishi County. Keep it here for more. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.